From the studio that brought you Man of Steel and Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. Just when you thought it couldn't get any better, comes The Batman. From Academy Award-winning writer, Batman. Also starring, Batman. And produced by Batman. And Oscar-winning director, Batman. Wait a second, something's going on here. Jesus Christ. Just what can't this man do? We're not quite sure when it's coming out yet, but you're going to go watch it anyway. The Batman. I bet if I had enough money and as many mental problems, I'd do it all myself as well.
Hey there guys, what's going on? Tyler here with Your Movie Fix, and this is something that I've wanted to talk about for quite a little bit now, and now that we have confirmation that Ben Affleck is indeed going to be writing and directing the next standalone Batman movie, these are the top 5 stories that I'd like to see be adapted. Now it's almost a pretty unanimous thing that Ben Affleck was the best thing about Batman v Superman. I personally really enjoyed him, and he has become my new favorite live-action interpretation of The Dark Knight. So naturally, we're all pretty excited that he is going to be the one that's going to be adapting the next Batman story, an Oscar-winning writer and director. A big Batman fan as it is, it's hard to find a better combination to get a guy to direct the next Batman movie. So we're going to be talking about all that kind of good stuff. So in the last series of Batman movies, we got to see that trilogy take quite a bit of inspiration from many different stories, with Batman Begins taking inspiration from Tales of the Demon in year 1, with The Dark Knight even going off of The Long Halloween, with it ultimately being a big origin story for Harvey Dent to face the fall of Gotham's White Knight at the hands of the Joker. And in The Dark Knight Rises, we got to see a loose interpretation of the Nightfall story arc. But with this version of Batman, this is a Batman who is established. He's been doing it for 20 years. We know he has a rogues gallery. We're getting Suicide Squad. We have a Batman with history already. We can tell so many stories and introduce so many characters that have already been in Batman's world in these next movies. Now, one thing that I've thought that the Batman movies have been lacking, that we got to see in Dawn of Justice, that we haven't seen in a lot of previous ones, is the lack of detective skills. I want to see murder mystery movies. I want to see movies that make Batman think. I want to see his detective work. I want them to give it to us because we haven't really seen it. We got glimpses of it in Dawn of Justice with everything going on with the White Portuguese and his investigations of Superman, Lex Luthor, all that stuff. So I want to see more of that. So let's get into it. This is going to be my top 5. These are my opinions. These are all stories that I have and I have read, and these are what I think would be the best ones to really adapt. Now, some of these may contain spoilers for Batman v Superman, maybe not, but definitely spoilers for the stories themselves. So let's get into it. I'm going to start with the fan favorite. This is one that I'm not exactly clamoring for, but it has a strong possibility of happening. Batman Under the Hood. Jason Todd, Batman's former Robin, killed by the Joker, has returned from the grave, and he thinks he can clean up Gotham better than Batman ever could. Now, this is a movie that could be an emotional thriller for Batman, introduce us to his family, the Bat Family. We get to see the brutal anti-hero Red Hood. We get to see Ra's al Ghul, Black Mask, Joker, all those villains. Not too many over the top, and this is something that can fit in a pretty cohesive story. Because of that one clue of seeing the Robin suit inside the Batcave, it's what had a lot of fans clamoring to see. I personally think this story is a little overrated. I don't think Red Hood is the best Batman character of all time. I think he's a really great character. I think it's a really great story. I just don't know that I'm so ready to see a movie focused around the Red Hood. But it has a lot of potential, especially with someone like Ben Affleck handling it. And it wouldn't be, that out of place in the DC Extended Universe. Now moving on to number 4, I want to see Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on Serious Earth. And I'm also going to cheat just a little bit because I would like to see this story also take inspiration from the Arkham Asylum game storyline, as well as Batman Terror and Batman Prey, which were stories that featured Hugo Strange and the Scarecrow. Now in this particular story, a riot has broken out in Arkham Asylum, presumably started by the Joker. Now naturally, Commissioner Gordon and Batman decide it's best that if he goes and meets the Joker's demands, they want Batman in Arkham Asylum, they want to meet with him, they want to talk with him. This is a really interesting story because you find out that it's actually Dr. Cavendish, who is the doctor behind Arkham Asylum. He's in charge. He's the one that's actually behind this whole riot. He let everybody out. He wants Batman in there. But I would like to see Dr. Cavendish replaced with Dr. Hugo Strange, who's a psychoanalyst, psychotherapist, one of the best minds in Gotham, who has a great understanding of Batman, and he knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. That is a villain that we haven't seen. I think he's phenomenal, and I'd like to see him. Although I did read Batman Terror, which is a story that really introduces Dr. Hugo Strange. There's a lot of things that are very eccentric about the character from that story that I don't want to see pulled in. such as him dressing up like Batman and being super jealous and thinking that, oh, the girls like Batman. I don't want to see that side of Hugo Strange. I want to see the creepy, super sinister, super intelligent Hugo Strange that can orchestrate everything behind the doors, because he's a character that can really challenge Batman's mind. And this is a movie that can be very personal. You could set it over one night instead of getting a movie that takes place over several weeks, over several days, over months in The Dark Knight Rises case. This is a movie that can take place over one night to make it a very personal, very creepy, up-close story in the dark in Arkham Asylum. I think that would be a lot of fun. You could have different villains and different wings of Arkham Asylum. Introduce Mr. Freeze, we have Killer Croc, we have Joker, and we can introduce Scarecrow, who is working the most close with Dr. Hugo Strange, and have him actually have Batman on a fear toxin the entire time while he's in there, have all kinds of weird hallucinations. I think this story has so much potential. It could be such a unique thing for a Batman movie that we haven't seen, introduce a lot of characters that we haven't seen. This is personally one of my favorites that I'd like to see, and it's something where you can introduce Oracle, you can introduce Nightwing. One of the things that's so great about most Batman stories that we probably won't get to see in a Batman movie is his thoughts. We get to hear Batman's thoughts while reading a book, but instead of having him, maybe narrate over the movie, we don't have to have something like that, but I think that would be interesting if we could get a narration from Batman similar to Rorschach narrating over things in Watchmen. But we need to introduce Oracle. The time is here to introduce the Bat family, have Nightwing and Oracle, and she can be his conversation. We can get thoughts bouncing off of him, off of Oracle, get backgrounds on these characters without it being exposition and it just being conversation between these characters who know all of these other characters and these villains. Now we're going to see a glimpse of Arkham Asylum and Suicide Squad. We know the Joker's from there, so who knows what the aesthetic will really be of Arkham, but I think this is a story that holds a lot of potential and I really want to see it. Moving on to number 3, Batman Death of the Family. Not Death in the Family, I really want to see Death of the Family. Now the Joker's broken out of Arkham, he's back with a vengeance, and he's returned to destroy everyone that Batman's ever come to rely on over the years. Nightwing, Oracle, Catwoman, Alfred, Commissioner Gordon. Maybe we don't need to see a new Robin, and I think that's something that can work in these movies. We can have Nightwing, he was the first one, he worked out. We moved on, we got Jason Todd, he died. This could be the reason we don't see a Tim Drake. Batman doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to go down that road again. So we can still have a Jason Todd and a Dick Grayson. I'm perfectly fine with that. But for this story, I think we could only, we only need to serve as Nightwing. We don't need to have 4 Robins, 2 Batgirls, all that good stuff. We don't need to see that. Now, I particularly love the ending of this story that involves Batman and a Joker ending in a conversation in a standoff inside the Batcave. I think this is the first time we ever see the Joker actually in the Batcave. He staged this whole thing. He has everyone kidnapped there in the Batcave, presumably cut their faces off, and he's about to feed them to it. All this crazy stuff. It's really bonkers. But this confrontation with Joker and Batman on the ledge in a Batcave, Batman's threatening that he knows his identity. He's stopped the game. He knows Joker's identity, and he's threatening to reveal it to him. But the Joker throws himself off the edge, and he leaves this notebook. This notebook is present throughout the story, and this is what the Joker has, where he's telling Batman that in this notebook, I have all of your information. I know you're Bruce Wayne. I know of all the Robins. I know their identities. He doesn't actually say their names, but he says that he knows their identities. It turns out the journal's blank. It's a blank diary. It was all just to mess with Batman, because Joker knows that if he reveals Batman's identity, the game is over. It's no longer fun, and I think this is a really phenomenal story. It's something I'd like to see. It could also fit in the DCEU. Now, I don't think we are in a spot where we can tell stories that are flashbacks, but I don't think we necessarily need to. All of these stories, I think, can fit in after the events of Dawn of Justice and be self-contained in Gotham. Now let's talk about number 2, Batman Hush. Now this is sometimes considered one of the all-time best Batman stories out there, but it has such a deep, rich history of Batman's mythology in this. We'd probably need to make a lot of changes for the movies because there would be way too much to introduce. So this one would probably need the most changes from the source material. Now this is a story that features Huntress, Poison Ivy, Killer Croc, Two-Face, Talia al Ghul, Ra's al Ghul, Joker, Clayface, Harley Quinn, Hush, the Riddler, and even Superman. Now this is a murder mystery story that has a ton of moving parts. Now Batman has taken a fall, he's cracked his skull. The only person that can help him is his childhood friend Thomas Elliot, who's one of the leading surgeons in the world. He operates out of Gotham City, he saves Batman, he brings him back. And Batman has his friend back in his life. They catch up with one another. And Thomas Elliot meets his demise by the Joker. And this leads to an awesome confrontation between the Joker and Batman in an alley where Batman almost crosses the line and he almost kills the Joker, but Commissioner Gordon stops him. Ultimately, this is a story where we find out about Hush and how the Riddler is actually behind all of this. Someone has been manipulating all of Batman's rogues into doing things they wouldn't normally do. This doesn't fit their MO, and someone is behind it. It turns out you think it's actually this villain Hush, but it's actually the Riddler. Now, just for funsies, I'd like to throw out some casting. I'd really like to see a Neil Patrick Harris as the Riddler, or even Leonardo DiCaprio. Now, I think the absolute perfect choice for Thomas Elliot and Hush would be Matt Damon. Matt Damon working with Ben Affleck as one of his villains in this story would be absolutely great. Now, like I said, this is a movie that would probably have to take a lot of departures from what Batman Hush is, and you need to feature Hush a little more heavily in this story. You need to take out a lot of villains. We need to have Catwoman. She is one of the major players in this. She is necessary for this story to work. You can have Superman now that we know that he exists in this world, but we maybe don't need to see Clayface or Two-Face, all of these villains. We don't need to see all of them because it's a little too much. We need to tone it down, and we need to bring Hush into the limelight of this movie. Now, just as an honorable mention, I'd like to talk about Batman Monsters, which is actually a story where Batman's, there's a series of murders going around in Gotham, and it turns out they're all being done by Clayface, a vampire, and a werewolf. I think we can actually make a monster movie work with Batman. Let's not have a werewolf. Let's not have a vampire. We can keep Clayface and add Killer Croc and possibly Man-Bat. I think that would be a total departure from anything we've seen with Batman, him dealing with these supernatural creatures, with a villain like Clayface, Man-Bat, Killer Croc. We now have him introduced. I think that would be a little interesting. But with that said, I want to move on to my number one choice, the Court of Owls and the Night of Owls. Now, there's been a series of brutal murders in Gotham, and Batman realizes these crimes are probably deeper than they appear. He unravels this conspiracy going back all the way to his childhood and even the origins of Gotham City going back to the 1600s. Could this urban legend of the Court of Owls be behind all of the crime and the corruption, or is Bruce losing his grip on reality? This is my absolute favorite, my number one. I have to go with this because this is very fresh. It's very new. This is a rogues gallery. The Court of Owls. We have never seen anything like it. It was a brand new story. What I probably consider my favorite Batman story in the comics. Scott Snyder did an awesome job. This is something that could fit right up Ben Affleck's alley. I'd like to see this adapted. It's a weird mystery crime thriller. It's very psychological, even dealing with Batman getting trapped in this underground maze set up by the Court of Owls. But let's talk about the Court of Owls for just a second. Now, the Court of Owls is a secret society comprised of some of the oldest and most elite families in Gotham, using their money and violence to have some political influence over the city. And they kidnap children that are performers from the circus and transform them into their assassins known as the Talons. Now, what this movie can do is really delve into the history of Batman. It can delve into the history of the city of Gotham itself. And that's something that's really cool because the Court of Owls likes to live in some of Gotham's oldest buildings, very historical. They live inside the walls, all these secret doors, and even I don't know if you've ever been up to like really tall buildings. A lot of places don't have an actual 13th floor. They'll go from 12 to 14, usually skipping 13. And a lot of times the Court of Owls, like the Talons, will live in the space in between the 12th and 14th floor, in the 13th floor where they set up shop. They plan all their murders there. They take orders from the Court of Owls. A lot of just really kooky, really interesting history in Gotham and Batman. I'd love to see the Talons adapted. I'd love to see the Court of Owls adapted. It has so much potential. Now, the Night of Owls ends with this big invasion of a bunch of Talons going over and taking over Wayne Manor. They go into the Batcave. Batman's fighting them. Maybe we don't need to have that quite big of an invasion with the Talons, but we can focus on the main Talon who is featured in the first Court of Owls story, Lincoln March, who believes himself to be Bruce's brother, Thomas Wayne Jr. Now, it's left a little unclear if this is actually true. With Martha Wayne actually getting in an accident when she was pregnant, they had to do an emergency C-section and take the baby out, and he was put in an asylum, and he grew up outside of the Wayne family. They didn't want him, sort of a thing. But I think this was really all just a brainwashing thing that the Court of Owls did to Lincoln March to brainwash him into hating Bruce Wayne and causing this very personal vendetta between them. So this is a story that I've been wanting to see ever since we got little Easter eggs in Batman v Superman. We got to see his grandfather's grave, who was a character introduced in this story. So anyways, guys, those are my top 5 stories. Now, if I really had to pick of something like a trilogy, if I had to narrow it down to a top 3 for sure that I want to see, maybe the Arkham Asylum, Hush, and the Court of Owls. But that's just me. Comment down below your ideal trilogy, and what do you think of these specific top 5 stories for Ben Affleck to direct, and how excited are you to see Ben Affleck directing the next standalone Batman film? This has been your Movie Fix, guys. Be sure to subscribe for more movie news, movie reviews, and trailer breakdowns, all that good stuff, and videos like this. I'll see you on the next video.